Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And as you can see, we have a 1914 set up ready to go, and we'll be playing with the Russian Revolution, and we'll also be playing with the updated errata rules that came out after the out-of-box rules. So I had some comments on the last 1914 that I showed, and people were a little disconcerted that the Americans were able to land in Africa and France and whatnot, because the rules out of box state that the U.S. can do that. They just can't engage the Central Powers until turn 4, or if they're fired upon. And the errata, the updated rules, I guess you could call them, say that they must stay in their corner over in Zone 1 there, or on the American mainland. So we'll be playing with that today as well. But before we get going on that, we just want to make sure that we cover our last little giveaway. I guess I should probably get stuff here ready to go. So these are the tokens and the little navy that I've put together as a giveaway. And the giveaway was based on anybody who remarked about the blessings they've had in 2018 and what they're looking forward to in 2019. And it had a lot of great comments, and it looks like a lot of good things are happening for people, and there's a lot of great things that you're looking forward to, so glad to hear that. As far as some of these tokens go, there is some concern that they're not very useful in Axis and Allies, but they actually are. Well, the damaged are very useful. They speak for themselves, and you can just go ahead and use that. So when you, instead of tipping a battleship and a carrier, you can actually put them on top of those. They work quite well. The coastal ones are ones that we use in sometimes in Global 40 when we want to have the neutrals actually have a naval vessel or two, just to make them have a little bit more punch. So in case they're invaded, you know, for instance, Turkey or something like that gets invaded, or something. There's also a navy then that when an allied ship or an Axis ship, the other side comes in, they can grab those boats for themselves. So it's, or unless they're sunk by the invader, of course. But you know, if somebody goes into Spain, let's say, we all know about the Spanish beachhead. You know, if Spain's got a couple of boats there, let's say the Americans come and land in Spain, well then they can have the Spanish boats defend the coastline if they're present. And if they're on a different coastline, then if the Axis can get a boat over there, say the Italians, then they get to grab those ships. So it's just a fun little addition to the game. The torpedo net speaks for themselves. I mean, the torpedo nets are great because they add a lot of defense. They cost a little bit, depending on the game, the meta that you're playing, the different people you're playing with. We've seen them charged anywhere from $5 to $15. Basically, what a torpedo net does is for one game round, you put that in your C zone. If it's not attacked, it remains. But if it is attacked, it stops all torpedo bombers, if you have any of those in a particular game, but also stops all subs from firing torpedoes. So subs become impotent on that. So if you see that maybe the Americans are swarming with subs on the west coast and they're going to bring them on over to Tokyo Bay, you know, the Japanese might look at this as something they want to purchase. But it's just something for you to try out. There's a whole bunch of different rules that you can put in there, add some house rules, think things through though, and see if they work. And hey, you know what I'd love to hear? I'd love to hear if, when you get these, whoever is the winner, hey, if you put any of these to work, let me know. You know, let us all know. Throw some comments up. If you have your own channel, maybe just advertise them on your channel and how you use them, and maybe that'll help enrich the games for other people. Alright, so we're going to head back here now. So the winner of that will be the person who gets rolled. So I got a D10 here from Chessex. It's an official electric yellow-green polyhedral 7-die set, and this is the D10. And what I've done is I've broken the groups up into 10, 10, and 6. But I am going to roll a d10 for this, so if we get 7, 8, 9, or 10, of course, nobody will win out of that group. It just keeps the odds the same for everybody, so everybody has a 1 in 10 shot for each roll that happens. All right, so we're going to start with group number 1, and we're just going to count down from the top 1 to 10. So War Phoenix is 1, down to Winston 94 is 10. So here we go with the first roll. That is a 3. I'm going to turn that around. It's a 3. So right now out of the first group, Mike Ball. Mike Ball is our winner out of the first group. Let's see who comes out of the second group. Number 1. Number 1 is Soul Rays MH. There you go. So we got Mike Ball and Soul Rays MH. And then out of the bottom group, here we go. Oh, look at that. I rolled an 8. So I'm sorry, folks. Nobody in that bottom group is going to be eligible for the prize, which means we only have 2 going for it here. We got Mike Ball, Soul Rays MH. So we're going to have Mike Ball be a 1 through 5. And Soul Rays MH is going to be a 6 through 10. The 10 is denoted by the 0. All right, so here we go. Good luck to both of you. And, oh, another 1. Look at that. So a 1 means Mike Ball is our winner. Congratulations, Mike. And all I need you to do is you can either comment in the section below or let me know how to get a hold of you to get your address. And we will ship that off to you post haste. Of course, it's going to be Canada Post, so I don't know how hasty that is. But anyway, we'll get it to you wherever you happen to live. Last time I did one of these, I had to go to Jorn Orpdal up in Norway, and it made it there in pretty good time. So I have faith that you will get your prize. And just before we get into this, I also want to do a quick ad for a YouTube Global 1940 game. It's Season 2, and I have not participated so much with most of the people in this one, but I am going to be playing on the side of the Axis. And I will be playing Italy, and Detroit is going to be playing Japan, and Dutch Lancaster, who was one of my partners in the last game, he's going to be playing the Germans. So that'll be fun, and it's going to start up on February 1st is going to be when Dutch starts the Blitz, and we'll see how that goes for us. On the Allies side, we have 3 very competent players. We have G.I. Joe, Sired Blood, and VK Cowboy, and they haven't decided who's going to play what yet. Obviously, I mean, it seems obvious to me that they saw the lineup that we have here, and you know, they're shaking in their boots. Okay, probably not, but it's going to be a good YouTube game, and I'm really looking forward to it. So once again, congratulations to Mike Ball, and stay tuned for the updates on Season 2 of the YouTube Axis and Allies little tournaments that go on. Tournament's not the right thing. Just YouTube gaming, I guess. And we're going to have a great time, and we'll be posting those updates for you. All right, we'll be back in a moment with the end of Round 1 of Axis and Allies 1914. There's a long shadow being cast across Europe. Okay, it's a little dramatic. But anyway, as you can see, the first turn is pretty status quo here. A couple of minor surprises, but for the most part it's okay. So, did have an interesting move right off the bat by Austria-Hungary, and we're going to call this one the bear trap, I think, because they just went up here, stacked some guys in Galicia, went down, took Serbia, and took it with authority. Took it with everybody they could send from Budapest. And now they have 2 territories loaded up because they knew the Russians were going to go into Romania. So maybe they're trying to kill that Russian expeditionary force into Romania. But we'll see. They went into Venice and didn't do real well. Killed a couple guys, but as you can see, they're down to 1 of each. They really got hit hard by the Italians, who came back in with everything they could. and hit them pretty hard. So maybe this gamble in the east wasn't such a great idea. The Russians, of course, responded by trying to send some guys out here, and got thumped by a ton of Germans. And with the threat of the Austro-Hungarians there, watch out, that Russian Revolution might only be a couple of turns away. No, it's not that bad. But the Russians, of course, did the regular, bring some guys to Sevastopol, plug up the middle here, and bring your guys down from Karelian Finland. No big surprises there. Germany went and did an all-out attack, of course, on Sea Zone 9, like Germany is wont to do. And it went quite well. They actually had a wounded battleship and a cruiser left over. But then the French went in and nailed it with everything they had, and everybody lost everything. So the British are able to build there. As you can see, there's a British transport that's freshly minted and safe, because the planes weren't really a huge concern to ships at this time. The Germans pushed into Holland and Belgium, and just kind of loaded up in Alsace, and just basically are begging the French to come in and try to muck it up and get within range of these big stacks of German troops. But the French were having none of that, and they just did a huge stack up in Lorraine. This is a strategy that we saw. Sorry, I wish I remember who put this on. But basically, the French just load everybody up here, and then if the Germans spread out, the French will probably outnumber them 2-1 in any one single battle, and might be able to hammer the Germans. So we'll see what the Kaiser does on his turn with that little bit of event there. The British, of course, with no U-boats in the area again, were able to bring some fellows over from Canada. And the French actually sent, not sure how well you can see them over there. Oh, it looks like my camera's adjusting. Sent a transport over there to hopefully haul some guys back. But that's going to take a little while, of course. In other news, the French brought a couple guys down to French West Africa because the Germans were not playing nice, and took the Gold Coast, so the infantry are hoping to staunch the flow there. Down the south here, the British attacked the German man and artillery and got a single hit, but were not hit in the return fire, so Germans, of course, are left with infantry. They have their 2 infantry there, but Germans are looking not long for this world here. The Italians are even getting in on it and helping to support the British in British East Africa. And we'll see how that goes. The Turks are under a little bit of duress, of course, as they should be in this game. If Turkey is doing really well and busting out of her own borders, they're either getting really, really good dice rolls, or somebody's not paying attention. So if the Ottoman is healthy, that's bad. It's kind of like a healthy Italy in Global 40. That's really bad for the Entente in this game. So the British put a good chunk of their build here, except for the transport. They put everything here in India, hoping to apply some pressure on the Ottomans. And gotta put the Ottoman build on. Gotta put the Ottomans on. But beyond that, that's pretty much it. Arabia, of course, is an easy take. British fleet here in the Red Sea, contesting Transjordan, so that $1 is not going to the Ottomans, but of course they took Bulgaria and got the troops and artillery for that. So that's the first round, and we will see what happens on round 2 of 1914. All right, well, there is trap and counter-trap going on. I'll explain as we go. Let's start with the Austro-Hungarians. Of course, here, the wonderful time they have trying to take these territories from the Italians. Major slugfest here. Now, you may have noticed, if you were watching closely, there were some units in Bohemia that have miraculously been able to make it all the way here to join the fight. Just the fellow forgot to move them, so we all said, sure, go ahead. And Italy was a little ticked, but that's okay. He just forgot to move them, so that's okay. Maybe in your games, maybe you can mention in the comments below, as if, once you're done, you're done. It's kind of like a chess move. You take your hand off the piece and it's over. I don't know, but we tend to be pretty forgiving, especially with people who haven't played a lot. But he sent them up here, and they pretty much all died anyway. But they did punch a little above their weight against the Italians here. But we'll talk about that in a bit. So Austro-Hungary holds on here, but they brought in a ton of guys down here into Romania. An absolute monster stack. They brought everybody from Galicia, everybody from Serbia, and just hammered into there. They had 22 or something infantry, just a ridiculous amount, and a bunch of artillery, as you can see. And so the Russians, who fought valiantly and killed a whole whack of them, because you can see there's only 7 infantry left. The Russians decided that better to run away and fight again another day, so they brought everybody back into Ukraine on that one, and they brought everybody from Sevastopol as well. And you can see the Turks took that, but more on that later. So they've set up a decent little force here, and pushed into Galicia. Had a little fight there because, why not? And Livonia is where everybody's going, but they left the Belarus here wide open, and so the Germans just popped a guy in there. Brought some guys over from Prussia to beef up Poland, but kind of looks like a bit of a trap here, right? You got the pincer move from the north and the south by the Russians, but if we look here, the Russians are also in a bit of a pincer from the north and the north up there, the south down here for the Austro-Hungarians. So we're going to see if Russia can actually hold on to her territory long enough to avoid the revolution and keep things in the fight. On the Western Front, all is not quiet. Well, I guess you could argue that it was. Not a lot of fighting took place. The Germans have this insane stack of infantry that they have built up, over 30, and plus about 13 or 14 artillery, plus aircraft, all within range of some French territory. They actually took Picardy, but then the French took it back, so there's a little bit of fight there. Then the French decided to retreat from Lorraine. They were just looking a little scared, but they did send one guy, of course, in here to Alsace to take that just to be cheeky, because why not? So the Germans are going to have to take that back, of course. Paris, though, is getting a little bit of help from the Brits, as you can see. And the French are not without numbers as well. They actually outnumber the Germans in artillery there, I believe. It's pretty close, actually. I think you got a little... Germany might have a couple more. But the French have some allies there that are starting to bring some guys over. And speaking of their allies, the British landed 4 units this turn, and next turn they'll be able to land 6 because they brought, of course, the transport with them. So we'll have to see how that works out. The British also are going to be bringing some guys over on the transport there. The Americans just built another transport or two and built some artillery. They'll be bringing them over in a couple of rounds, of course. In Africa, poor Africa, the Germans retreated, and the French are going to come by and basically make a mess of things for them. The British in the south were able to extinguish any German hopes of empire building down here. One fella left in Rhodesia probably will take the Union of South Africa. But as you can see, German territory gets gobbled up as quickly as they grab stuff. So it's pretty typical, pretty status quo down there. Well, let's take a look here at the Ottoman. So the Ottomans decided that discretion was a better part of valor and left Transjordan for the Brits. And got to put a British symbol on there. All these little housekeeping things we forget until we start filming. The British were able to take Persia and are continuing to build in India. and it looks like it's going to be the slow, steady march. Now, the Ottomans retreated. It looks like they're trying to put themselves into a position to hammer this territory and then maybe go make a mess in Africa. But the British definitely are very interested in controlling how far the Ottomans can actually reach. But the Ottomans did take this from the Russians, and will probably be giving it back quite shortly, unless the Austro-Hungarians reinforce. Austro-Hungary was a little ticked that the Ottomans took that $3, but I think the Ottomans could probably use it a little bit more acutely. So that's pretty much it. Italy's hanging tough here in Albania. Decided not to move anybody. They're going to remain as a conspicuous thorn in the side of the Austro-Hungarians, and we'll see if anything is done by AH on that at the start of the next turn. Alright folks, thanks for sticking with us here. We're going to let you know what happens on the on the next turn, turn 3. And the war rages on, and let's just take a look here at the old AH and see how things are going for them. Well, kind of good and kind of bad. Let's take a look at the good. They took Venice, and with authority, nothing that the Italians could to bring against it there, and that the fighter really helped out. All 3 artillery there got hits because they were 4 or less with the air superiority. But they did lose their fleet to the Italians, who got kind of uppity there and decided to try something else. They also lost Trieste, as you can see, and Albania and Serbia are all in Italian hands. So the Italians are doing okay. I think they collected 22 this round, because they also got a couple here down in the south. But Italy was looking on the ropes here, and they still kind of are. But now that they've been able to marshal everything in Rome, looks like they're going to sortie out, and I think they're counting on the French here to help them out in northern Italy there in Piedmont. But hey, back to the Russian frontier. So we remember the Ottomans were in Sevastopol last turn, and so Austro-Hungarians said we're going to come in there and bolster them. So then the Russians said, okay, you want to be cheeky, and the Russians took Romania. Of course, Austro-Hungary knew that was going to happen, but they were hoping that between them and these forces and the Germans, they could crush this. Unfortunately, the British had other plans, and instead of punching in through Mesopotamia, they came up into Sevastopol and did some damage, killed 5 infantry, and so Austro-Hungary is kind of neutered there. And as you know with the rules, you can only move into certain territories when you're already engaged, so they can only go into friendly territories, friendly or allied territories, or other territories that are contested. And right now, there ain't any. So they've got a fight right here. They'll probably beat up these Brits, but could lose a few guys at the same time. And the Brits have more coming. Speaking of the Brits, again, they built their entire build here in India. And the Ottomans took back Mesopotamia, just one guy in there, but they also had some success here in Transjordan. So the gateway to Africa is wide open. So we're going to see what happens with that, because the Ottomans just can't go crazy and try to gobble up Africa, because yeah, they've got a concern here with the Brits. The Brits have more stuff over here than the Ottomans do, and Brits can put more stuff in. So we'll see what happens there. Russia and Germany fought like demons over Poland, and it still is contested, although the Russians are down to 1 of each artillery and infantry, so they'll probably retreat out of there into some healthier territory. What else has been going on? The Germans did move their last turn's build. They moved towards Russia because they figure that this is pretty solid wall here, not going to be going anywhere. Lorraine was traded back and forth. The Brits came over, the Canadians came over, landed in Brest, and the Brits have their 2 transports, and you say, hey, I thought they had 3. Well, they did, but they left one in C-Zone 9, and the plane here, the fighter, since they had nothing else to do, decided to go sink it. And as we know, transports have no fighting capability, so that was an easy kill. And the British player shook his head for a while at the $6 he could have used elsewhere. But the French continue to build up, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. Somebody's going to have to blink here pretty soon, because America will be in the war at the start of the, well, at the end of the next turn. Well, it's turn 3, so at the beginning of turn 4 they can declare war. So these boats and these guys are going to be coming over, and they have 6 transports going to be coming over, so that's 12 units getting dropped in. That's pretty good. Don't have to head back to get any more, though. I think we've already mentioned here, but we'll take another quick look, that the Germans are just down to one guy in Nigeria. So we'll see if he tries to reclaim Cameroon, or if he just tries to hold his own against the 3 French coming at him. Alright, well, that is it for round 3. And we will let you know how round 4 goes in just a second. Alright, well, turn 4 is over, and things are starting to look pretty, I don't know. It looks like the Central Powers may have waited a little too long, but we'll see. There's still lots of game to play. But not in Africa. Africa is pretty much done, except the Ottomans here, who just want to screw around for some reason, are causing grief. Took Egypt, because they were able to defeat the British in Transjordan, and last round, as we saw, and then they moved in there. But the British are coming in force here. They're bringing everything, all their builds pretty much are going here. They did build a few guys at home, but the Ottomans decided to circle the wagons there in Ankara, and are hoping to hold on a bit. They did bust out a little bit. They did leave Bulgaria. You can see there is a dark red chip under there. So they got 8 guys in Bulgaria. They're pretty safe from the Russians for now. And they were able to defeat the lone Italian in Serbia. And the other Italian that was in Trieste here after the battle, there was only one guy left. He got hauled across to Tuscany. The Austro-Hungarians went big on men this time. Oh yes, and that force of Austro-Hungarians down here fought the British and beat them up pretty badly, but didn't quite get rid of them. And then the Russians busted out this round. So let's go through it. They came down here to Sevastopol. They lost a few guys doing that. Went to Romania, took that one. There's a decent little fight there. And took Galicia for free, and beat the Germans right out of Poland. And the Germans were loath to come back in, because all they had in range were these troops here. And yeah, didn't really feel like fighting all that with those odds. So they loaded up the frontier, and you can see the Germans built some tanks here, of course, to absorb some hits. Italy is moving up again. Austria-Hungary actually, since they had won that and these were empty, they actually took these. So they got $5 extra, but they lost those 2 guys worth 6, and it didn't kill anything either. So not sure if that really worked out. The Germans finally blinked, as it were, and moved into Lorraine. So now the trenches are well and truly dug. And the British are starting to pour more things in here. I think the clock is ticking on the Central Powers. This might be the turn that they need to try something, and we'll just see if that happens. The Brits still funneling some guys across, still aren't wanting to build transports because of that lone German fighter, and didn't feel like putting money into cruisers and whatnot, so they're just going to build stuff in London and shuttle it over to Wales and bring it across. It's kind of the long way around the barn, but at least they're not throwing away money. The Americans are in the war now, and have brought over their 12 units on the 6 transports, and from here they can land in France, or in Italy, or even all the way to Albania. We'll see if that's on their radar. And the French here have just a couple of guys from Africa here. The German, who was in Nigeria, did a brave yet futile charge against the Italian in Cameroon and died. And then the Italian is moving up, of course, to engage the Ottomans. So that's where we're at now. And moving on to turn 5. And we shall see if this is the round that kind of decides things. It's a good game, though, and everybody's enjoying it. We'll see. The Russians are pretty strong. A little weak in the middle, I guess, but they're a lot stronger at turn 5 than they typically are. And Germany, I think, has to put the pedal to the metal here and get something done. But we'll see what happens on turn 5. Quick little addendum to just the last little wrap up. We forgot to put the Italian build on, but here it is in all its glory, and they actually built a tank. Go Italy. Anyway, they had a big round last round. They got 22 or 21, or they had 22 or something to spend, so it was pretty good, and they decided to do that. All right, back to the game. All right, well, we're done turn 5, I believe it is. 5 or 6, 5, 6. And we're going to call this a triple entente victory. The Central Powers aren't dead by any means, and in fact, they're not terribly unhealthy, except over here. A disaster happened here. Germany attacked, hoping to really put the boots to the French, and they did actually. They did quite well. You can see the French are really whittled down here, and the Germans still had not too bad left. They had about the same as the French. But then the British came in and did their attack as well, and despite German air superiority, they whittled them down. The Germans are down to, I think, 9 units total in there now, down from 53 or something. So lots of 1s and 2s got rolled. The dice were just absolutely hot for everybody. So the British also got a little cheeky here and landed up in Holland and took that and can't be taken back. And in fact, next turn they're going to take the Ruhr, and there's nothing Germany can do about it. And that's kind of why we're going to call it, is because even though this is, it's looking not great for the Germans, this is looking horrible. They've got lots of problems. Yes, they've taken Poland, and that's great, and they're causing grief here for the Russians in Galicia, and the Austro-Hungarians are pretty strong here. But even the Italians, when the Italians are building tanks and planes, things aren't going really well for the Central Powers. It's usually a bad sign. The Russians, building tons of stuff. They had a ton of money last time because they had all their territory, plus Romania, plus Galicia. So they had scads of money, and they spent it. Ottomans were able to bust out a little bit here. They took Romania. They have Serbia and whatnot. But as you can see, USA have landed in Albania and taken that territory from the Austro-Hungarians. And they're going to be a little thorn in the side. As we all know with this game, the Americans are kind of, one and done. They got to go back and get more guys or have a steady trickle. But it's that first landing that can really cause grief. But if the Austro-Hungarians weren't so hard pressed against the Italians and the Russians, this American Expeditionary Force wouldn't be long for this world, I don't think. But they've got problems. Speaking of problems, the British don't have any down here. They were able to move some guys from their build last time over here to Transjordan. Took that with authority. The French, those crazy Frenchmen, came from way over here. We remember them from last turn. They won 2. They landed here with a bombard, kablamo. And so that's it for Central Powers in Africa. They are well and truly done. And the Ottoman will not be punching through any of this British stuff anytime soon, not to any great extent. And again, the British are just piling more and more stuff. It's just a steady stream. And the Russians, I mean, they've got tons and tons and tons of stuff here, and they've tied up some Germans. The reason the Germans went into Galicia is because the Austro-Hungarians were screaming for help, because there was a decent Russian force in there, and you can still see there's still 4 artillery in there with a man. So, but the Germans came in there and were able to whittle things down. And the Germans do have a good force in the middle, but it really looks like Austria-Hungary is on the ropes here, Germany's on the ropes here, and Britain is now starting to take away coastal stuff. And so the Germans, not only do they have really no shot at taking Paris, they're going to be busy just trying to put out the fires domestically. So we're going to call it a victory for the Allies. Our notes from the game: Germany should have moved faster. They took one turn too long sitting in Belgium not doing anything, and we believe that was the death knell for the German army. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Austria-Hungary could have gone stronger on Italy. They actually did pretty well, but they didn't sustain it. They turned their attention back to Russia when they probably should have just punched through, and not worried about Russia for the first little bit. But having Budapest cost 6 or be worth 6 really keeps the Austro-Hungarians at home. That's a big chunk of their money, so can't really blame them for being a little nervous, especially when the Brits came up here into Sevastopol and wiped out their army. So, but there you have it, folks. Yet another victory for the Entente, and another defeat for the Central Powers. Poor fellas. Hopefully they'll be able to get their act together and win one of these one day. We see so many victories by the Entente. Usually, this is the first one I think we've ever played where, with the Russian Revolution, we've actually had the Central Powers lose. But we think the Germans sent too much stuff to France, not enough stuff to Russia, and then just waited in France. And Germany cannot wait. Germany's got to go. But thanks so much for watching, and congrats again to Mike Ball for winning the little giveaway there of the army and the tokens. You can see one of them in use there, Mike. There you go. And we'll be sending that out to you as soon as you get a hold of us. So everybody else, hey, Happy New Year if you haven't been told that yet. I'm sure you have. And take care, and we'll keep you up to date on what's going on with that YouTube game. Hey, let's hope that Italy does as well in that game as it did in this, even though it's playing for a different team. So thanks so much for playing, folks, or for watching, watching us play. And hey, again, hug your loved ones. Tell your friends that you're glad that you're friends. And hey, may those dice be with you.